Hello, Bible in a Year family. Reverend David Spence, Reverend Kevin Cain, Reverend. I wonder what the derivation of that is, or what the etymology, or what's the word I'm
I would
looking for
think
here?
reverent.
I
would think there'd be a connection there.
I guess. I don't know.
To be reverent.
What point did they start saying that in Christendom?
Many moons ago.
Yes. we know how this goes. No one calls me Reverend except my family, and it's more they're making fun of me.
But I love Rev Kev. I mean, it rhymes. It's powerful. Rev Kev.
Rev
Yeah.
Kev.
Yeah.
You know who we're going to source right now.
Yeah.
Don't say his name. He gets too much airplay. He'll know who we're talking about. We're talking about rhyming.
Yeah.
David, sometimes I'll call him Kevrand.
That's good.
It's terrible.
I have an explanation on the Reverend thing.
What'd you do? Google it really
I did.
quick?
That's what I can.
Googled
I
it
can
really
do that.
fast.
I can do
All
that.
right, hit us with it,
Reverend
Tanner.
is a title derived from Latin, meaning worthy of reverence. So David would have got that question right on Jeopardy.
How about that? Worthy of reverence. Mike Blosser, next time I see you, I'm Reverend Kevin Cain.
Yeah. Remind him.
Or not. All right, guys, here we go. Well, there we go, Reverend Spence. What episode is this, Miss Seela?
272.
272. Looking at Luke 9 and 10 today.
Yeah.
You have anything catchy you want to say right now?
Great material. Jesus is going to send the disciples out. So that's where we started in Luke chapter 9.
You said something to me as we were getting ready to do these podcast recordings today, that there are some things in Luke that just are not in any of the other Gospels.
Yeah, today we're in Luke chapter 9 and 10. But if you look at the Gospel of Luke in chapters 9 through 18, there are a lot of stories in Luke chapters 9 through 18 that you're not going to find in Matthew, Mark, or John.
All right.
So keep your eyes open for that.
So do you want to give us one of those right now?
Well, we'll get into the story of, for example, the Good Samaritan,
Okay.
which is well known, and we'll get into that in the days ahead. But stories like that, you're not going to find anywhere else. So Luke is a medical doctor. He's Gentile. He's non-Jew. And he's the only Gentile writer in all of the New Testament. And so he's going to give you some ideas and some variations on themes that you're not going to find anywhere else in the Bible.
Hey, can I ask you a question
Sure.
about the first section here in Luke 9? And I'm wondering who you believe the him to be in verse 9. I'm going to read 7 through 9, and I want you to tell me who you think. Now, Herod the Tetrarch heard about all that was going on, and he was perplexed because some were saying that John had been raised from the dead, others that Elijah had appeared, and still others that one of the prophets of long ago had come back to life. But Herod said, I beheaded John. Who then is this I hear such things about? And he tried to see him. Is he talking about Jesus there?
I think he is.
Yeah, I do too. I find it interesting. You know, when I was talking in the Gospel of Mark, and everything gets a little cattywampus in the Gospel of Mark in terms of my timetable, you know, and how I laid it out. I just think it makes more sense in terms of Mark 1, and then we get over to Luke 4. And that's what I was meaning. We talk Mark 1, and then we get over to Luke 4, and then everything just seems kind of cattywampus. We're all over the board in this thing. I mean, we just are. And I know Luke a lot of times seems to be a bit more chronological than the others, but it's still all over the board in all of this.
Yeah, Luke is not strictly chronological, but a lot of it is. And so he tells the story so well in every detail.
So I think it's interesting, too, the connection between verses 7 through 9 and then Peter's declaration of Jesus as Messiah. When it says there in verse 18, who do the crowds say that I am? Some say John the Baptist. Others say Elijah. Still others that one of the prophets of long ago has come back to life. It's the same thing that we have back here, this weird debate that's happening,
Yeah.
you know, with Herod. And Jesus, I don't think he's directly referencing that passage, but at the same time, I do think there's really a stir going on to who this Jesus guy is.
Yeah.
And so I think it's important, if we're working from, the core group out, they better be sure in their faith. And so when Jesus says, but what about you?
Yeah.
I'm not talking to the world right now. What about you? Who do you say that I am? And Peter answered, you're God's Messiah.
Yeah. In Matthew chapter 16, Mark chapter 8, Luke chapter 9, who is Jesus Christ? And Kevin, that's the age-old question. It's the most important question in life. Who is Jesus Christ to you? And you will know them by their fruits. And how people answer that question, who is Jesus Christ to you, tells you everything you need to know about what they believe.
If somebody asked you, okay, Luke 9, 21 through 27, if somebody asked you, what does it mean to be a disciple of Jesus? How would you answer that, David?
I think to be a follower, to love the Lord, to obey the Lord, to go where he calls you to go, to love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, to love your neighbors yourself, which we've talked about, to do what he has called you to do.
Yeah, I just find that so interesting, because, again, it goes back to what I was talking about in Luke 5 and just how Simon, Peter, and all of them, really, because they all came back to shore and abandoned their boats that were there that day. Even with Matthew / Levi getting up and walking away from his tax booth.
Yeah.
And again, I don't think everyone is called to do that. Priscilla and Aquila.
Right.
Paul. Yeah, Paul. Eventually, I think he gave himself 100% to the preaching, but the vast majority of the time, Paul was bivocational.
Yeah. Worked
on tents all day and kind of talked with people as they came by and then reasoned with them in the synagogue week to week to week to week. It wasn't like he was a street evangelist in terms of, standing there with a microphone shouting. He always had a tent in his hands and some operating tools.
Yeah.
But I do think when we look at this concept of discipleship, I think all of us have to say, at some point, you're either going to be ministering in the occupation in which you find yourself, or the occupation in which you find yourself is ministry.
Yeah.
And one way or the other, I think wherever we are and whatever we're doing, we need to be doing heartily as unto the Lord and not as some sort of sidebar.
Yeah. And when you think of the word disciple, think of the word discipline, because it takes discipline to be a disciple.
It's interesting. Ray Vanderlaan is a great Bible teacher, and he talks about Talmudim, these followers of Jesus. I think that's the word. I've never had Hebrew or Greek, so but I think that's the word. But these are people that just sit at the feet of Christ and learn.
Amen.
But let's be honest, Jesus is not conceptual in his focus of ministry. He's driven, and he wants these people to know, and he wants these people to do.
Yeah.
And I think there's no sense of us learning all the stuff that we learn if we're not going to get out there and do it. We're just, it's more to it than that.
Yeah. And Jesus models that perfectly. He invested a lot of time one-on-one with the Father in prayer at a lonely place. He went out to pray, but he also invested a lot of time with people.
It's interesting, Guy. I was talking about this, in the last sermon that I preached. Just, when you become a disciple, there are going to be countless times where you feel horribly uncomfortable. And I said, I remember one of, technically, please do not hear me saying I'm comparing my life to Samuel, because that is not what I mean. But there's a section early on in 1 Samuel where Samuel's just a little boy prior to the whole "Speak, Lord, your servant is listening."
Yeah.
And it says something to the effect of, now the word of the Lord was rare in that time. And it says that the word of God had not yet come to Samuel.
Yeah.
So, but to say that he's not a person of faith is ridiculous. But I remember I was probably 8 or 9 years old. I didn't give my life to Christ till I was 10. But I remember at 8 or 9 years old, my grandmother taking me to Sundale Rest Home, which, like, and I say this extremely loosely. You want to traumatize a little kid? Take that little boy to Sundale Rest Home in 1978.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I do.
And I can see it in my head right now, George Spear with a feeding tube in his nose. I mean, I can see it. That made me uncomfortable that day. It did, but I'm glad that it did. I'm glad that it made me uncomfortable. I'm glad that my grandmother put me in that position to have to struggle a little bit. And, you know, I've tried to do that with our boys, is put them in a position to where they don't feel comfortable all the time. You know, I mean, Sela and her crew are going downtown, you know, and we've talked about this before, and I don't think it's right for them to go by themselves down there. I think they should be going as a group. But I love the fact that they're going to places and meeting with people that are out of their comfort zone. I remember years ago in Mannington, you know, here I am, 21 years old, and this family, it was a dad and a mom and 3 kids. And I'm not going to say their names. I don't think that's right. But they were just poor. Their house was made out of particle board. I mean, think about that. Their house was made out of particle board.
Yeah.
And they invited me to come have dinner with them. And I went before the evening service, you know, because I preached at 9, 10, 11, and then 7 o'clock at night. So at like 5 o'clock, they invited me to come to their home. And they were so proud of that meal. And it was, remember those before microwave rice? There were those Lipton rice packets you could get. They had made 2 packs of Spanish rice. And that's what they served me. We all sat around the table together and we ate that Spanish rice in that particle board house. And I mean, there I am walking in with my, you know, dress shoes on and my tie, and my mom and dad had gussied me all up, took me down to Reiner and Core in downtown Morgantown and got me a nice suit to wear and nice shoes to wear. And, you know, you think you're all high on the hog and then you get knocked in the teeth. And I was very uncomfortable in that moment. Remember the first time visiting an intensive care patient. I never even got to see him, to tell you the truth. I only made it to his family. And those moments make you feel uncomfortable. But I think if you're going to be a disciple for Jesus, you need to feel a little uncomfortable at times.
Because it makes you trust in the Lord. You know?
Gosh.
I think you're exactly right.
It's funny, I talked for 10 minutes there, and you make one sentence. And just bring it home.
Hey, I'm a commentator. You're play-by-play.
Where do we go now? Transfiguration.
Yeah.
What do you want to talk about?
Well, it's interesting because Matthew, Mark, and Luke all have this story of the transfiguration. Matthew and Mark use that word transform, transfigured, metamorphosis. Luke does not use that word.
What word does he use?
Well, he says that his clothing became white, glistening. He uses the word, as he was praying, the appearance of his face, Jesus' face changed. His clothes became as bright as a flash of lightning. And so that later says that no fuller on earth could have bleached his clothes that white. You see Moses and Elijah up there with Jesus, and Simon, Peter, and James, and John just looking on, and you hear the voice of God speaking.
I think it's interesting, too, that verses 21 and 22 talk about Jesus predicting his death.
Yeah.
And then when you get down to verse 31, that's how it begins.
Yeah.
Moses and Elijah are talking to Jesus about his departure.
Yeah.
I wonder what they were talking about.
Yeah.
They were talking about him going to the cross.
Only Luke tells you that. Matthew doesn't tell you. Mark doesn't tell you, but Luke says they were talking about his departure. That's a great point.
That's huge. You know, that's huge. And then you can see Peter trying to cling to the moment.
Yeah. He does.
As verse 33, as the men were leaving Jesus, Peter says, oh, wait a minute, it's good for us to be here. Bro, you're not in charge of this. Hush.
Yeah.
Let's put up 3 shelters. Let's just keep this thing on going and forever. Well, he didn't know what he was saying. And while he's speaking, a cloud appeared, covered them, and they were afraid as they entered the cloud. A voice came from the cloud saying, well, let me tell you something. This is my son, whom I've chosen. You listen to him. And this is what I was saying too about that: a wicked and adulterous nation seeks after the sign. You keep it to yourself. Go show the priest, and then we're not doing this. We're not sensationalizing this. Let it happen as it is, and then take the next step in the journey. I just think it's so important.
And again, the application, we mentioned this briefly in Matthew and Mark, but Jesus was transformed, and do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed yourselves by the renewal of your mind. And so this is applicational for all of us.
100%. All right. We'll talk about Jesus healing this boy possessed by the demon. Do you want to talk about prediction of his death a second time? Or do you want to talk about Samaritan opposition? We're definitely going to talk about Samaritan opposition, but I just don't want to jump ahead of you.
Well, look at 9:42. The boy was coming. The demon threw the boy to the ground in a convulsion. Jesus rebuked the evil spirit. So you see, Jesus has power and authority to heal anyone of anything.
100%. 100%. Then I think this is significant. I think people need to understand that Jesus isn't just there to teach some sort of moral code.
Yeah.
He's not there for us just to get our physical bodies healed. Do I think he teaches a moral code? I most certainly do. Do I think he heals the mortal body? I 100% believe that. But to say that is the primary function of Jesus, I think it's denying what he came to do. Yeah. And what he came to do was die on a cross, be buried in a tomb, resurrect from the dead on the third day.
That's true.
That's the gospel.
Yeah.
Does it come with a moral code? Yeah, absolutely. But that's a branch. It's not a root. Yeah. Does it come with physical healing? Yes, it 100% does. But that's a branch. It's not a root. Yeah. The root structure of the ministry of Jesus and the life of Jesus is death, burial, and resurrection.
Yeah, great point. And all four Gospels will bring you to that point: his passion, life, death, resurrection, and ascension.
So this is something that we talked about before. Okay, verse 49, Master, said John, we saw someone driving out demons in your name, and we tried to stop him. Why? Because he's not one of us. And Jesus said, do not stop him. Whoever isn't against you is for you. Yeah. It's like Joshua running up to Moses and saying, Eldad and Medad were prophesying in the camp. And Moses says, good. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. I mean, if they're on our team, who cares where they do it? Yeah. But then you see another, and I haven't read this section anywhere else. Maybe I'm wrong about that. But verses 51 through 56. At that time, as the time approached for him to be taken up to heaven, and I love this, Jesus resolutely set out for Jerusalem, and he sent messengers on ahead of him who went into a Samaritan village to get things ready for him. But the people didn't welcome him because he was heading for Jerusalem, which is an interesting exchange.
Yes.
When the disciples, James and John, saw this, they asked, Lord, do you want us to call down fire from heaven to destroy them? What? So violence is the answer to our problems? But Jesus turned and rebuked them, and then he and his disciples went to another village. Also, what in the world?
And, later on, when you get into the book of Acts, James and John, folks will be ministering in Samaria, and people will be won to Christ. So Jesus sees the big picture. We just see a little bit.
Yeah, 100%. We talked already about the cost of discipleship. I talked about it at length. Okay, let's shift to chapter 10.
Let's go.
So I think this is one of the things that people need to see. And I know sometimes people say, well, wait a minute, is it 72 or is it 70? Just get it close.
Yeah.
Okay. You've got 120 at the ascension.
Yeah, you do.
You've got 70, 72, okay, that are sent out. You have the 12 that are sent out.
Yeah.
Of the 12, you have 11 that are in Gethsemane. Of the 11, you have 3. And of the 3, you have 1. Yeah. And that doesn't mean John's better than everybody else, or James, John, and, Simon Peter are better than everybody else. That's not what that means. What matters is that there's structure to how Jesus does things for the purpose of the advancement of the gospel of Jesus Christ. Yeah. It really is that simple. But in this case, we get the 72 being sent out. And I love what Jesus says. The harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. Ask the Lord of the harvest, therefore, to send out the workers into the harvest field. Go, I'm sending you out like lambs among wolves. And then he just goes down through the line.
And some people ask, well, how can you know the lambs from the wolves? And Jesus says in other areas of the scripture, you will know them by their fruits. It may take a day, may take a week, may take a month, it may take 10 years, but you will know them by their fruits.
100%. We've talked about the woes before, but why don't we spend some time, because we've got about 10 minutes to go here, and we get this parable of the Good Samaritan.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, people asking about, who is my neighbor? Because Jesus tells this young man that it's all about love. The guy says, teacher, notice he calls him teacher. What must I do to inherit eternal life? And Jesus said, well, how do you read the Bible? How do you understand it? And the guy says, love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. Jesus says, that's right. But then the young man says, well, wait. Who is my neighbor? So,
do you know the part that I love there? It's verse 29. You've answered correctly, Jesus replied. Do this and you'll live. But he wanted to justify himself.
He did.
Isn't that everybody?
Yeah.
I just lost. And I got to justify myself.
Yeah.
Dude, just take his answer. Just take his answer.
Yeah,
because he still believes he's in authority over Jesus. And that's not the case, you know? I mean, because the context for this, on one occasion, an expert in law stood up to test Jesus. Yeah. And when Jesus answers the question, the guy thinks, he's one up on me. So now I have to justify myself. And how often do we do things to justify ourselves?
We do
it all the time.
Yeah.
It's like that story that I told, about saying that prayer and then immediately apologizing for how bad it was. And Mark's dad saying to me, Mac's grandfather saying to me, the only reason you said that is because you want us to say, oh, no, you did a great job. Wanting to justify myself. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's an arrogance. It's an insecurity thing on our part. It's all of these things. And that's not how the Lord wants us to live. He wants us to live in truth, and he wants us to live in substance. And that's how we should live. All right. So let's talk about this parable itself.
Yeah. Well, Luke chapter 10, verse 30, you begin the parable of the Good Samaritan. You will not find this in Matthew, Mark, John, or anywhere else in all the Bible. What makes it so relevant is we tend to pass by. I don't want to get involved. So you have this man who is beaten almost to death. He's robbed. They leave him for dead on the road, and he's laying there. Imagine that, bleeding, close to death. And who walks by but the priest? And the priest says, I don't have time to deal with that. A Levite, I don't have time. But a Samaritan. And you got to remember that the Samaritans and the Jews did not care for each other. They did not get along. The Jews looked down upon the Samaritans. So it was the Samaritan that passed by and said, man, I've got to help this guy. And he takes him, puts him on his donkey, takes him to an inn, gives him medicine, gets him on the road to recovery. And then he tells the innkeeper, listen, anything else that's involved in expenses, I'll pay you back when I get back. He is the one. The Samaritan had compassion. He had love. He had grace, and he had mercy for the man that had been beaten. And so we call this the parable of the Good Samaritan.
This is the woman that was stabbed on the rail train in Charlotte.
I'm thinking about that.
This is exactly what happened.
Same thing.
And the priest and the Levite never stopped to help the poor lady, and she died.
Nobody did anything for her.
That is terrible.
Yeah, it is.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
In a very practical way, in terms of pastoring and ministry, it's one of the greatest lessons I was ever taught, and it's by Jim Halbert, who was with us for 1st and 2nd Samuel. Jim taught me this. He said, very often in our lives, we create ministry when there's ministry right in front of us.
Good point.
The priest stepped over ministry because he had ministry to go to.
Yeah.
The Levite stepped over ministry because I have ministry to go to. And the Samaritan says, wait a second, ministry. And this is what I was saying earlier.
That's good.
All this other stuff doesn't matter. I mean, that's why Paul says, get over yourself, Jew. Get over yourself, Greek. Get over yourself, male. Get over yourself, female. Get over all that stuff, because none of it matters. if you're right in front of somebody and somebody needs to see the face of Christ, you better stop and give them your face, which is the face of Christ. Because if you're giving your face, you're not going to give them your face. You're going to walk right past them because you don't possess the face of Christ in that moment or ever. I mean, it just gets me so angry. I don't know why we're always creating stuff when there's stuff right in front of you right now. Just deal with it.
And you think about all the people at Kingdom who are involved in ministry in so many different ways, and so many lives are being touched because that spirit of ministry is alive at Kingdom.
Yeah, and that's what I said on Sunday. I said, I'm not trying to be grumpy about this, but I said, the reality is, we've got all this food over there now for St. Ursula's, but the reality is there's 51 more weeks. And if I don't say something about it, it's not front of mind for people. Well, it's front of mind, daggone it, for the sister down at St. Ursula's, who's saying, wait, this pantry isn't open 1 week a year. I mean, how often do we hear, the pantries are overflowed at Thanksgiving and Christmas?
Yeah.
It's because it's front of mind for people. And this is part of what Jesus is saying too. He's saying, look, this has to be front of mind for you all the time.
Amen.
So don't look over ministry when it's right in front of you. Everybody wants to have a singles group at the church. I'm okay. I mean, great. Let's have, for what? For what? Or we need a Bible study for. Listen, I'm living proof that you don't have to have an age-specific Bible study. Me and 5 purple-haired women, you can't say that. It's true. My grandma put that blue stuff in her hair, and so did all of her friends. And you know what? I became a pastor because I sat on every Wednesday night with my grandma who had a Bible study with me before I had a Bible study. I mean, I think about what Sela's doing with her grandfather.
Oh, amen.
Sela doesn't have to start a hospital visitation ministry. She has visitation ministry with her grandfather every single day. And anybody that tells you that is not pastoring, they don't know the Bible. Yeah. You're doing it every single day. You don't have to create another ministry. You're doing it. You're not stepping over ministry to get to ministry. Amen. You're ministering to your grandfather every single day. And don't you dare let anybody discount that in your life. Yeah. You are living the Good Samaritan. You're doing it every day. We don't have to create a ministry. Go minister. Yeah. All right, that's me screaming and yelling for a little while.
Good stuff.
Well, praise the Lord.
Yeah.
I just don't understand it, David. Why do we always have to create a committee? I hate bureaucracy.
Yeah. The word committee appears nowhere in the New Testament.
Thank God. Yeah. Thank God.
Now we got the story of Mary and Martha.
I love how you just transitioned that. You're like, Kevin's getting excited. His blood pressure was good at the doctor this morning. We need to get him calmed down.
Well, it's a beautiful story. Martha and Mary have Jesus come to their home. Martha's in the kitchen. She's busy. This is Luke 10, 38 through 42. Martha is busy, anxious, worried. Mary is sitting at the feet of Jesus Christ, listening to his teaching. And Martha makes 2 huge mistakes here. Martha gets all upset because she's the only one in the kitchen. And so Martha says to Jesus Christ, Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me to do the work by myself? Tell me to help her. The first thing she does is she questions Jesus Christ. Do you not care, Lord? And you never question. The idea, does Jesus Christ really care? That was answered on the cross. So you don't have to ask that question. And then Martha tells Jesus what to do. Tell my sister to come in here and help me. You don't tell Jesus what to do, okay? Now somebody will say that, well, somebody had to fix the meal. No, they didn't. Jesus fasted 40 days at a time, and you know what that's like. Nobody had to cook anything. Martha was so anxious and worried, upset, nervous, and Mary is sitting quietly. And you know what Mary says in this passage? Nothing. Mary never speaks a word, never says a word, doesn't defend herself. She never says a word. Jesus says, Martha, Martha, you are anxious and troubled about many things. One thing is needful. Mary has chosen the good portion, which shall not be taken away from her. End of story.
Well, you think about just that contrast. Martha was distracted by all the preparations that had to be made.
Yeah.
All right, so let's just take that phrase. Had to be made.
Yeah.
Martha, Martha, the Lord answered, you're worried and upset about many things, but few things are needed, or indeed only one.
Yeah.
Had to be made versus few things. Matter of fact, there's only one thing.
Yeah.
David, I can't tell you how many anxious people I've had in my office over the years that I've looked at them and said to them, all right, what do you have to do today?
Yeah.
And they start making this list
Huh.
in their head.
Yeah.
And I don't break stride with them. I just keep looking. What do you have to do today?
Yeah.
You know? I mean, I guess I don't have to do anything. You know? Will life continue if you don't do those things? Yeah, it'll go on. You'll probably have to deal with some things afterwards. Yeah, fine. Or not. I mean, whatever. But what do you have to do? You know, what do you have to do? I think it's a statement about how you value yourself inappropriately, how you value what you're doing inappropriately, how you value others inappropriately, you know? I mean, it's all of these things. And this is what Jesus is saying. What do you need? The only thing you need is to sit at my feet. That's it. That's all. That's all. And anybody that says, well, you can't just sit around and sit at Jesus' feet all day. Yeah, I'm fully aware of that too. You know, power bill don't get paid sitting at Jesus' feet all day. But while you're doing what you need to do, are you also sitting at Jesus' feet?
Yeah.
That's what Paul means to pray without ceasing or do all heartily as unto the Lord.
Good point.
But people got to learn that, man.
Yeah.
I mean, they've got to learn that, you know?
Yeah.
Distracted, worried, you know,
Anxious.
all these things. Think about this. You're worried and upset about many things.
Yeah.
I mean, think about that. Worried and upset about many things. What are you worried about? I mean, there's nothing you can do about it anyways. And even if you are called to do it, this is what I mean, like we're talking about end of the world stuff, you know? Like the Lord isn't in control? He lost control somewhere along the way? No. I remember Granny said that to me once. Do you think this comes as a surprise to God? Oh, that was a great lesson.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess not. I guess we're good. You know, you think about these things,
Yeah.
you know.
She was a wise teacher.
Oh my gosh. She ripped me apart all the time in the most beautiful of ways.
Yeah.
So, all right, 33 minutes. These things keep getting longer and longer. I dig them though.
Yeah.
They're good.
That's good material.
It's good stuff.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay, guys, that's it. Let me see where we're at tomorrow. Tomorrow we're doing Luke 11 and 12. We just keep on going.
Yeah.
God bless you guys. We will see you mañana. See you then.